All right, what's up, boys? It is March 4th. I got another session recap. As you can see by my P&L, I did come out with 422 after fees. I am not happy with any of my entries other than my last one. And even my last one, I'm not completely happy with, and I'll explain to you guys why in this video. Before I get into it, I want to say, first off, thank you to everybody who is supporting the channel. You guys like these videos. Please give me a like and subscribe to the channel. And also, if you are trading order flow and you want to connect with other order flow traders, hit the Discord link in my description. All right, so this is the level I was really playing off of today. It was essentially from the January 13th low at 5809 up to 5822, and that represents when Trump got elected. So that's really all I went into the session with. Before we get into these entries, I want to tell you guys that I made the same mistake that I made yesterday, and I was taking entries that were literally getting stopped out. One of them, I think my first entry gets stopped out in 5 seconds. So you can see right here, I took essentially 4 entries in a row, back to back to back, which is has always been like the real issue in my trading since the very beginning. Just something I was not really mindful of yesterday or really today. My intention today was to take high quality setups. I don't know. I think what happens is the volatility and the speed really kind of like messes me up, and I think it creates a little bit more of a FOMO aspect. But yeah, so if you remember my plan, it was based off of this level from 5809 low and 5822, which is the election. We sell off at open, we bid right back up to 5822. At this point, I was looking for a reason to get long. My first entry is at 840, so that should be any second now. So in the moment, what I was really looking for was for this little low volume area to hold. But as you can see, we actually sold right through it. So at this point, I should have completely voided my thesis to look for long, because technically my thesis was invalid, right? What I kind of changed my thesis into was to play long off of this volume right here at like 510. But another red flag for this long entry was the fact that we put in a CVD divergence where you can see the aggressive selling volume created a new low on the CVD, or I guess not a new low, but it broke the area of volume that I was just talking about. As price comes back up to the 22 level, we are not seeing as much buying as we should be. So honestly, in hindsight, this could have actually been a good short entry with my stop loss above this little drop off in volume, and that could have offered me a good short setup potentially. But you're gonna see me here take a long entry. I literally will get stopped out in 5 seconds. So here I get long right here. So before I let this 5-second trade play out, I want to say that usually for these type of setups where I base it off of initiative buyers or even a low volume area, what I want to see in the CVD is it just remain flat or only drop off like a little bit. In this case, you can see a clear rollover right here, and then it is just signaling that selling is pretty much entering the market at this point. So I'm going to be honest, I did not pay a single lick of attention to this in the moment. So I was pretty much just way too focused on this buying volume right here holding. And you can see I literally get stopped out almost immediately after I enter. Another big problem with that first entry is my stop loss was technically not at a place that invalidated my thesis that I had. So that is what causes me to want to re-enter again right here. What I'm seeing, like I said, this is pretty much the same trade happening twice. I enter again long, and this time it's even worse entry because the CVD divergence is kind of just telling me to not look for longs, and you'll see me enter off like the most insignificant amount of volume. Like the price, really the price movement that kind of like suckers me into this move. Once again, I think this trade stops out in like 10 seconds or 20 seconds or something. You can see my entries at 13, and this time my thesis is bad, but at least my stop loss is at a place that invalidates my thesis. So at this moment, I'm like, all right, I want to flip to looking for a short entry now. So my first short entry is garbage. I enter without waiting for a pullback or anything, which is like, you're gonna see me in any second here enter, and I think there's my entry at 805. And just look at this. Like, this is a 12-point like leg, if you want to call it that right there. I'm entering 12 points away where I should really be invalidating my trade thesis, kind of like up here where even this high right here. So you can see this entry is purely impulsive, and my thesis for it was we were breaking down below the 5809 low. So we were at a area of interest. Obviously, you can tell by these two blue lines that I've marked out, but really where I should have had my stop loss for invalidation is where this move initiated at in this case, which is actually all the way up here at like 5,820. Terrible, impulsive, short entry. And on top of that, the last three entries that we've seen have almost been back to back to back. They've all been within a minute of each other stopping out. So like I mentioned already, and if you're not new here, you know that this is probably my biggest issue in trading, and it's always been my biggest issue in trading. And I get stopped out on this weird like move right here. I don't know if something got announced. I don't know if there was news, but you'll see price spike up in about 2 seconds here. So I get stopped out on that move right there, and you're going to see me in the top right, like I'm like, what the heck just happened? So this will be my fourth entry right here, 5804.75 entry. I'm short, and where should my stop loss really be? According to me, it should be right above 5813, which actually would have been a good entry point for a short. You can see my entry, I only have a max stop loss of 4 points. So my stop loss is obviously, once again, not at a place that invalidates my thesis. I was really thinking that it would, because my whole reason for being in the last two shorts was the breakdown below 5809. So this was kind of, I was treating it more like a break and retest. And so yeah, that is the reason for this trade. So at this point, I am 4 full losses deep in the session. And I'm still thinking that this thing's going to sell off like a good amount. And I'm still thinking that because we're below 5809, this thing's going to sell off a good amount. I'm thinking that there's potential for a pretty big move here. And that is why I believe I was so eager to get in these positions where they're impulsive and they're terrible entries, but it's like the FOMO that's really driving these entries, right? So at this point, I remember being like actually confused. I was just like, I have no idea what to think of this right now. In hindsight, I can still say that looking for shorts is the move, because we're trading below where this move was initiated at 5822. And then what causes me to get in my last entry is you see this bubble right here, signifying that buyers were not able to move price above this with significant effort. You can see that by the delta. It is immediately sold into. So now you're going to see some strong selling volume come in again by looking at the delta. It's right here. Once again, this is a premature entry and an impulsive entry, but since this activity is happening, I'm viewing this as significant, and I'm short off of these sellers right here. My stop loss is full 4-point stop, so 5809.17, and you'll see what happens is we just get the sell off from there. So that is the entry for my last entry. And in hindsight, had I just waited for significant activity to happen today, I would have been a lot better off. It is what it is, and in hindsight, it's easy to say you could have done everything better, but yes, today I definitely made mistakes again, just like yesterday. So since we were below 5809, my whole exit thesis for this trade was that we were going to sell off a lot. I did not know how much, but I was thinking that we were going to have potential for another sell-off of like at least 40 or 50 points. After the last few sessions where we've seen sell-offs like that, what I noticed is that if you just wait for a 5-minute candle to close green or a 15-minute candle to close green, you can capitalize on the bulk of the move. So my thesis for these exits was, all right, and this is what it was for every short entry that I took today, but I was planning on just waiting for a 5-minute candle to close green, and that's when I was going to take the position off. So by doing that, I'm able to patiently wait for a little bit. So for my first exit, I wanted to lock at least half of my position in, just given what I just did before that entry, and also on top of yesterday. So I'm trying to lock something in without being too like emotional, because I truly do believe this thing's going to sell off hard if we are below 5809. Let me just go to my executions. So yeah, 5785, I take half off. And then you can see my other two exits were kind of like, I just exited into strength as there was aggressive selling volume. So as soon as we get this sweep, I take 5 off right there. So there goes 5. And then you can see if I had patiently waited, I would have been able to get a lot more. But so then we get a large surge of selling volume. And at this point, I'm like, I need to lock this in. So I just take off the rest of it. But yeah, these are my executions for the trade. So yeah, that was the session. It was a roller coaster ride. I definitely had impulsive entries. I definitely stopped out and re-entered immediately, which is a huge flaw and a terrible habit to have. And in hindsight, I could have prevented probably 2 or 3 losses at least by just really remaining patient for good points of entry. Like I said, my entry points yesterday were absolutely awful, and then today they were terrible once again. But my last trade, I definitely followed significant volume, which is good. And I know I've said it before that one of the biggest things that's helped me in order flow trading is just to wait for significant volume. And that is definitely something I have not done the last 2 days. My Trade Evade account is now at $2,000 roughly. You can see $430 in profit after fees today. At one point, my account today was literally at like $600 or like $650. I would say today is just another bad example from me. I really have some reflecting to do, and I really need to build the awareness of my flaws for the rest of this month if I want to come out profitable. If you guys like these recaps, please give me a like and subscribe to the channel. I just do these videos so it can hopefully fast track somebody else's journey. And also, if you're an order flow trader and you want to connect with other order flow traders, hit the Discord in my description. And with that, I will catch you guys in the next one.